India, the most populous country in the world with over 1.4 billion people, is located in southern Asia. Its capital city is New Delhi and was our entry point into one of the most unique travel experiences we've ever encountered. We spent 1 month here, visiting 6 cities, including the 3 that form the Golden Triangle. While we were warned that our experience might be chaotic and overwhelming, this proved not to be true. In fact, we found it was a relatively easy country to travel in, as long as someone else was driving. We're John and Beth, and we are the Retirement Travelers.
If you've just found us, we are a senior travel couple who are traveling the world full-time in retirement. We've been working on a series of videos called Travel School. Last week was our 5th one, and this week we're taking a bit of a winter break from class so we can share with you our travels in India.
Next week, we'll be back at it, and the topic will be managing your money as you travel. Now, we'll give you all the deets on how we manage banking, investments, credit cards, and even how we deal with our cash.
And if you're wondering where we are as we travel, you can always check our location on Instagram. We keep it updated to our current location. And right now, we are in Sri Lanka, and we're heading to Africa next.
Like we said, we heard so many warnings about traveling in India. Everyone we talked to loved their time there, but we heard so many say that it was simply overwhelming to them. We didn't know what to expect because we had traveled in places that we thought were pretty hectic, like China and Vietnam and Thailand, but we thought this might be a little crazier than what we had ever experienced.
We began our trip by flying from Washington's Dulles Airport to New Delhi on KLM. Now, we had a long layover in Amsterdam, and we arrived in Delhi in the middle of the night. Now, we were really actually pretty glad that we did because we had anticipated a crazy hectic scene, and we had thought arriving in the middle of the night might actually help us manage our trip to the hotel without all the traffic. I think it was a pretty good strategy.
We stayed at the Grand Hyatt because we were able to book it with points for free. Now, when we arrived, and to our surprise, everyone seemed to be waiting on us. They seemed to know our names, and we were treated like royalty. When we got to our room, they had even left us a plate of candies, custom chocolates with our faces and pictures of our previous travels. It was so wonderful.
Yes, it was. It was such a wonderful surprise, and we knew right then that everything was going to be perfect at this hotel. And it was, for sure. The staff was incredible, and we especially liked the breakfast buffet. Every morning it was something we really looked forward to.
On our first day, we inquired about the subway, and we realized that it was just outside the hotel. Now, we were assured that the subway was safe and secure, and we would be fine to explore on it. So that's what we did. We took the subway everywhere. We visited all the sites, and when we couldn't get close to a site like the India Gate, we hired a tuk-tuk to get us the rest of the way.
Our first experience was visiting the Old Town. Now, this is a must if you come to Delhi. This is where the Red Fort is, and the Spice Souk is not far away. We walked to the Red Fort, and along the way, we were approached by many tuk-tuk drivers who offered to pedal us around and take us to the Spice Souk.
We ended up hiring a driver because he told us that it would be 20 rupees. I think that it was like a quarter. So we thought, sure, why don't we do that? When we got as far as he could drive, he hopped off and he walked the rest of the way. It was very interesting, very hectic and chaotic, but still, we were in India and we were doing it.
You know, when we left, he asked another man to ask us if we wanted to go anywhere else, and we replied, no, we'll just return to the subway. But on the way back, he took us on a whole new route. You know, it was wonderful, but he just kept offering to take us to new places, and we would politely decline and say, no, just take us back to the metro station.
Now, he pedaled and pedaled and pedaled, and we had a great experience. When we arrived back at the station about an hour and a half later, he told us that it was 1,000 rupees. Now, we had gone from 25 cents to $12. I mean, what could we do at that point? We paid it, and we learned a big lesson to ask about the return fare. We just assumed it would be similar, but not a 5,000% markup.
It was crazy. So this was our first experience, and we determined, you know, some things about Delhi. Yes, the traffic is crazy, especially when you're riding in a motorized tuk-tuk. we felt a little vulnerable without seat belts or, what we would call orderly traffic patterns, but still better than trying to cross the road on your own because you have no protection. It was a little bit death-defying.
The next thing we learned was that people really didn't get into our personal space like we were warned they would. We found that people were very kind and friendly. When we rode on the subway, it wasn't any different than riding in any other metropolitan city around the world. The big difference we noticed was that many people insisted that I take a seat and not remain standing. They insisted that John sit too, and he finally gave up and sat down.
We had a great visit to Delhi, and when we left, we took the subway to the train station because we had a train ticket to Agra. Now, this is a higher speed train and actually faster than driving, so we were really looking forward to it. Now, unfortunately, it kept getting delayed, and we sat for about 5 hours waiting on it. It was starting to get dark, and we knew once we arrived in Agra, we still had to manage our way across town to our hotel. So we finally threw in the towel, and we decided to hire an Uber to take us on. We met with another couple, on the platform that were from the Netherlands, and they offered to share the cost, so we hired a driver.
It was pretty uneventful, and the highway was good. Now, we learned two things. Uber is very common in India and very affordable. We drove for about 3 hours, and the cost was about $100, including tips and tolls for all four of us. The other thing we learned is that at this time of year, January, the weather is cool and the air quality is very poor. Smoke gets trapped in the air, and when this happens, trains run behind schedule and are unpredictable. So we chalked up this experience as a learning one.
Agra was a bucket list because the Taj Mahal is located there. Now, we aren't going to recommend our hotel. It was pretty average, but visiting the Taj Mahal was fabulous. We purchased our tickets online from the official government agency, and it was a piece of cake. Our takeaway here is to hire a tuk-tuk to get you as close as you can to the entrance, and then you only have a short distance to walk, or just stay in a hotel that's within walking distance.
Now, walking around the Taj Mahal and after watching Slumdog Millionaire, I was a little worried about our shoes, but they didn't make us leave our shoes. They actually just provided us shoe coverings as we walked through it. It was very beautiful, and we loved everything about it. It was very straightforward to visit. You can hire a walking guide, but we were fine on our own. Now, we didn't go at sunrise like everybody else recommends, and by the afternoon, the air was actually clearer and the site was less crowded. So it was also a little warmer. So we were happy we went midday. Our stay in Agra was pretty good, but while we were there, we got what many people call Delhi belly. Now, I had a really rough time and suffered for probably a week. We never ate the street food, and we always drank bottled water, but I was pretty sick. When we took an Uber from there on to Jaipur. Now, there were many wonderful places we visited. Jaipur is full of history and historic sites, and it completed our journey through the Golden Triangle.
Now, one night in Jaipur, we met a couple who reached out to us who are one of our viewers, Robin and Kevin. They had lived in India for a work assignment, and we met them for dinner. They took us to eat a traditional thali meal. It was so delicious and one of our best evenings. They were very, very nice, and we just had the best time, and we'd love to meet up with them again.
Yeah, we would. When we left Jaipur, we traveled to Udaipur. We flew on Indigo Air and loved this airline. While we were there, they celebrated a Hindu celebration, which I cannot pronounce the name of it. I'm very sorry. It was so much fun, though, walking through all the festivities. Once again, we were treated so well. People insisted that we take part, and they kept pushing food towards us. And I was very hesitant to eat it, but it was very sweet. They were just so happy, and it was such a fun experience. They were dancing in the street and all over the city. They flew orange banners and flags. It was just such a festive occasion.
Yes, it was. Now, while we were there, our favorite thing was visiting the city palace. We love this. We had a great tour. The architecture and the detail were phenomenal. It was a museum and very expansive. And also, we hit the jackpot while we were walking around. We met some super nice people, Seymour Preet and Bhagyashri, and they were from Mumbai. They offered to help us with, answering our questions, and even sent us a lot of information to help us on our next stop, which was Mumbai.
We flew from Udaipur to Mumbai on Air India. Now, this too was a good experience, but the airport was a little hectic trying to manage our items separately since the men and women were screened on different belts.
That's right. Now, when we got to Mumbai, we checked into another great Hyatt property, the Hyatt Regency. This was an incredible hotel, and we loved everything about it. And the best part, it was free with points. Now, the breakfast was probably one of the best in the world. A gentleman that heads up the dining for the hotel met us every single day and made sure we tried a different Indian dish. It was just so wonderful. You know, one evening we met up with the friends that we had met in Udaipur, Simmerpreet and Bhagyashri, and we met them for dinner and had a wonderful experience. You know, I think sharing a meal with new friends is one of my favorite things about travel.
Mine too.
Yeah, it was just the best.
We stayed at this hotel for 5 nights, and then we transferred over to another Hyatt property by the beach, which was also free. We like free. We explored the city with a guide, Pooja. Now, we loved her. She was so knowledgeable, and she took us all over the place. We'll have a blog post in the future, in a few weeks, hopefully.
Months, maybe.
Where we will explore all of these cities. So check out our website in a few weeks, and we're still working on them, but we'll get there.
Now, while we were there, we visited the Crawford Market, a Hindu temple, and even ate at the famous Leopold Cafe that was built in 1871. Now, this was the initial site of a terrorist attack in 2008 where 10 people lost their lives. The restaurant reopened defiantly and pledged to keep on serving. You know, before the attacks, it was a tourist hotspot, but now many Indians love it for that very reason.
My favorite thing was watching and learning about the Dhobi Ghat, where 100,000 pieces of laundry are washed every day by 7,000 people. Now, this is the largest open-air laundry in the world, and it was so impressive. It looked like they were washing the entire city's laundry.
I think they were. You know, my favorite memory of Mumbai was walking on the beach at sunset. Now, cricket is the national sport, and they take it very seriously. Every little boy learns to play, and they even have women's leagues as well. Now, on the beach, you could join a pickup game, and I just couldn't help myself. You know, I wanted to try to hit the ball, and guess what? I was awful. But it was great fun, and the guys were so kind to me. You know, they let this old guy jump into their game, and they were great sports about it. You know, we saw a little soccer too, but up and down the beach, it was just kids out there playing games.
When we left Mumbai, we flew once again on Air India to the southern town of Kochi. Now, every time we flew, we encountered warmer and warmer weather. Kochi is a tropical area, and the thing that struck us most as we were walking around was how beautiful the birds were. I think we saw and heard the most beautiful birds. It is a great place to go for birding.
Yes, it is. Now, Kochi is also famous for their backwaters. We took a boat ride with a company called Kochi Backwaters, and we'll leave a link below. They took us out on a sunrise cruise, and this was just so nice. You know, we had the boat all to ourselves, and we spent almost 3 hours touring through all the areas. The wildlife was simply incredible.
We also toured the city on our own and visited several places around town. We walked a lot, but we were also able to flag down tuk-tuks when we needed to cross town. Now, one of the most interesting things we did was attend a traditional Kathakali performance. They spend the first hour putting on makeup, and then they perform.
We stayed at the La Meridian Hotel, and it was a wonderful experience as well. You know, we highly recommend it. The breakfast buffet was once again delicious.
Awesome.
You know, the staff was some of our favorite, and we just had the best stay with them.
Our takeaway from our time in India is don't be afraid to travel here. Yes, the driving is crazy. I mean, like NASCAR and Formula One could treat this country as a farm team. They were very good drivers, but it was a little wild. I would never rent a car here, and there's really no need. I mean, you can always hire drivers on the spot and tuk-tuks when needed.
Our second takeaway is don't be hesitant to speak to people. You know, most everyone we met spoke English. They actually have the highest rate of English speakers in the world. And we had a hard time understanding many of them, but they tried so hard to help us.
Our next takeaway is to dress for comfort. We were told that we had to wear pants, and this just wasn't true in the big cities. While we were in the north, it was cooler, and we were glad that we had pants on. But once we got to the cities, nobody cared. We were told that in smaller towns, might need to be more conservative, but when you're in the city, they're used to tourists and they really have no problems with men and women in shorts. I wasn't wearing short shorts, but I was wearing a travel skirt and I was fine.
I wasn't wearing short shorts either, just for the record. Now, the next thing we learned is be prepared for the honking. Now, apparently, this is an entire language conveyed with the honk of a horn. You know, mostly for us, we took the horn honks as get out of the way, but we later heard the difference and learned some of the subtleties. You know, like I'm passing you on the left, I'm passing you on the right, I'm going first. It's a whole thing.
The next thing we learned is that you don't need to book a package tour to see India. It was easy for us to manage alone, but we do recommend that you hire a local guide for the day. Now, we hired several guides and we were really glad we did. We learned so much. They were all affordable and we booked them through our hotels. It was one of the easiest things for us to do. We didn't arrange them ahead of time and we had no problem. We'll leave some links below to some of our guides.
And one more thing, you will get asked to take a selfie, and our suggestion is just go with it. You know, we took a lot of selfies, especially at the tourist attractions. You know, people were very curious about us, and we had great fun with it.
Several of the kitchen staff in Kochi came from the Northeast region, and we will probably go there our next trip. Now, if you're looking for a place to jump into India that isn't overwhelming, then start in Kochi. Kerala, the southern region, was a bit calmer, and we loved this area as a starting point for India. But really, we did just fine in starting in Delhi and making it through 6 cities.
India is a huge country, and we really barely just scratched the surface. Now, when we got our e-visa, we got a 5-year visa so we could come and go over the next 5 years. You know, we could have gotten a shorter one, but India is so large and so important in the world that we wanted to explore it more. You know, many people gave us advice about different places to go as we traveled, and we like the idea of doing smaller towns, especially in the Northeast.
Another tip we have for India is plan to have some cash on you. Unlike other places we've traveled to in Europe and Southeast Asia, we needed cash to get around. You need to have small bills for various reasons, so keep that in mind when you go.
Our biggest piece of advice is to accept that everything isn't going to go perfect while traveling in India, but don't let that stop you from coming here. It was never too much on the senses as we were warned, and we just tried to embrace the chaos. The people were never chaotic, and they were very kind and thoughtful. Yes, crossing city streets were sometimes, I would say, impossible, but we'd go back and do it all again. You know, even getting sick was temporary, and the occasional pushy hustler was manageable.
We hope this helps you gain confidence in planning your own trip here. We're currently in Sri Lanka and we're having a great time, so we'll be posting on that soon. You won't want to miss this place either.
We'll see you next week.
Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along on our retirement journey around the world.